So we are living in absolutely incredible times when it comes to creativity and people putting out creative work. I mean, never before have so many people been able to make a full-time living off of their creativity. Never have there been this many platforms that you can grow a fan base, grow an audience, grow a following. I mean, it is just absolutely amazing, this era that we are living in. And if you're like me, you have quite a few friends, quite a few people that you know online that maybe you follow or that you really enjoy their work and you want to support them in some way. But how do you do that effectively? Let's talk about it. Several years ago when my daughter was 3, she absolutely loved to color. And I know all kids enjoy coloring, but I mean, this was like a deep-seated addiction. She loved to color everything. Every coloring book page that she could get a hold of, every just blank sheet of paper, every surface in our house, she wanted to color it, and that's what she would do all day long. And I remember one day I got home from work, and as soon as I walked in the door, she just burst into just this exuberance, and she ran over to me as fast as she could, and she had this piece of paper in her hand, and she walked right up to me, gave me a big hug, and said, "Daddy, I colored you this." And she handed me a coloring book page that looked something kind of like this. And at first I was like, "Oh, that's amazing. I love it." And I looked at my wife, and I kind of was like, "Hey, what is it?" And my wife told me, "Oh, it's Minnie Mouse. Can you see the Minnie Mouse?" And then I was like, "Oh, it's Minnie Mouse. It's like Doodle Brown. Minnie Mouse is my favorite. This is amazing. This is awesome." And I gave her a big old hug, and I picked her up, and I said, "Oh, you were just the best artist." And objectively looking at this, like, this is not good art. You know what I mean? Like, it's using all the colors. That's why it's all brown. She ain't staying in the lines at all. It's just like, I don't, objectively, from an artistic, artsy standpoint, this ain't very good. But you know what I did? I did not throw it in the garbage. Of course not. That would make me a terrible father. What I did was I walked over to what is really the most prominent place to display art in all of human history, the refrigerator. And I put the Doodoo Brown Minnie Mouse right there, top center for everybody to see, spot on the refrigerator. Of course I did. Because there's an absolute truth in here, and that is how you treat the created, what's been created, how you treat that reveals how you feel about the one who created it. And I really love my daughter. I really care about her. And that was way more important than any kind of objective art, criticism, opinion, who cares about any of that stuff? I care about this person. And so how I treat what, she's created reveals how I feel about her. So if you have friends and acquaintances and people you follow online who have enough courage, enough bravery to raise their hand and say, "Hey world, I made this, check it out." If you know those people, I just want to encourage you to find ways to support them, to encourage them, to help them to keep going, because it is not easy to do that, to raise your hand and go, "Hey, look at this thing I made," knowing that you're opening yourself up to criticism and discouragement and some really ugly things that often happen online, unfortunately. And so if you know people like that, support them. And here are a few ways that you can do that. The first thing to realize is that unsolicited advice is always criticism. I know you think you're just being helpful, but you're not just being helpful. And if you're not someone that this person goes to usually for advice or feedback or, asking your opinion about things, they probably don't want you to send them an email with your thoughts on how they could have done the thing better. You're not one of their people. If you were, you would already know that. They would have already reached out to you about it more than likely. And if they didn't, you had that relationship built up where you could, at least say, "Hey, I have some thoughts." But if you're just sending a blind email, posting a blind comment and saying, "Oh, well, you should have done red here instead of blue because red's my favorite color. And if you did it red, it'd be way better." I mean, what are you doing? I mean, do you feel like you need them to change? Why do you feel like you need them to change? Is this, I read a research paper a while back, and it talked about how people that often give unsolicited advice and feedback, honestly, they have a deep down issue with narcissism, with needing to feel like they're in control, with needing that kind of power hit of being, in the higher place to say, "Hey, you should do this thing," and they're kind of above other people. And so if you feel the need to do that, to send messages, to slide in somebody's DMs with feedback or criticism, maybe take a step back and ask yourself, why? There might be some self-awareness things you need to realize. You might need to look in the mirror just for a minute. And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not, a doctor or anything like that. I'm just saying maybe, because I know personally I've dealt with the same kind of things where I want to give my opinion on things. And honestly, it was more about me than it was about the person I was giving an opinion to. So just realize that. Now, does that mean you should only ever tell people that life is rainbows and butterflies? Of course not. But I want to give you an example, a tale of two emails, and kind of prove what I'm talking about. So a few years ago, when I was just getting started with my podcast, I was in Honduras and my microphone wasn't exactly the best. It was like one of those $40 Amazon specials that I had brought back in my bag, one day when I was flying back to Honduras from the States. And every surface in Honduras is hard. Everything's made out of concrete and tile, and so getting good sound quality is a monster of a challenge, especially when you don't have any idea what you're doing. And so those early episodes of the podcast, the sound was fine, like it was functional, and it wasn't awful or anything, but it definitely had room for improvement. And at one point, I got a random email from some person who was a listener, and they had some feelings. And they told me how awful the sound quality was. I think your sound quality sucks was the actual quote in there. And then they offered all these things that I should be doing. You need a better microphone. Well, they didn't have any idea of the context that I was in. And I didn't even know who they were. I didn't ask for their opinion or their feedback. And so I just deleted the email because, thanks, but no thanks kind of thing. And then maybe, a week, 2-3 weeks later, I got another email from someone, and they said something to the effect of, hey, I love the show, gotten a lot of value out of it, really appreciate you doing the podcast. Hey, listen, I am a professional audio engineer, and they told me where they worked and gave me the link, so I could check it out. And they said, if you ever have any questions, you ever want to chat about, sound quality or any ways that you can, improve the overall sound of the show, send me a message. I'd love to talk to you about it. And I immediately responded, yes, please tell me more. Tell me all the things. Give me all your best practices. Tell me all your tips and tricks. Here's my situation. Here's the microphone I'm using. I'm not going to be able to upgrade it until I go back to the States. I can buy a new one and bring it back down to Honduras. What are your suggestions as far as microphones and price ranges, and how can I dampen the sound? Like all these things. I was like question after question after question, and it led to a really enjoyable and helpful email chain of responses in this email exchange. Do you see the difference? Like if you really feel like you need to give some feedback, some criticism, some advice or something like that, just ask if you can first. And they might say yes, even if they may no, because a lot of times creative people, they want to be people pleasers and they might just be being polite, but at least you asked and you've done all that you can. But just say, hey, I've got some ideas. And if you are an actual credible source, if you've got some advice and feedback on somebody's health and you're a doctor or a nutritionist, or you have a degree in exercise science or something like that, okay, that matters versus you're just some person who read a random article on Facebook and now you think you're an expert. And I'm not saying that if something is a 1-star review worthy thing that you shouldn't leave a 1-star review. If you don't enjoy it, if you think it's bad, if it's broken, whatever it is, yeah, go leave those reviews. But I'm saying when you reach out to a creator personally, either through an email, a message, even a comment on a post or something like that, just realize that unsolicited advice is pretty much always going to be perceived as criticism, and 99% of the time they're not going to even care what you say because of the way you're approaching it. So you're really just wasting everybody's time. All right, so the next point is to offer feedback when you're asked. If a creative person trusts you enough to reach out and say, hey, I've got this thing, I'm working on this, whatever it is, what are your thoughts? That's a pretty big deal, and so I encourage you just to be open and honest with them. Be kind about it, don't just tear them to shreds or anything like that, but give them your open and honest thoughts and ideas, and hopefully they'll be able to take it and learn from it and grow from it. And even if it's not someone you're really close to, if it's on like in an online group or forum or something like that, like I'm a part of a lot of groups where people will post the thing that they're working on, and sometimes they say, hey, look at this thing I made. And I love being able to go in and being encouraging and go, hey, that's a cool thing that you made, because they're not asking for my thoughts and ideas and feedback. And Sometimes they just want to say, hey, here's this thing. And it takes a lot of bravery just to post that, let alone asking for anything. And so I just like to honor that and go, hey, this is really cool. And if I notice something glaring, it's a big deal, big issue, I might mention it. But more than likely, I'm just like, hey, cool thing that you made. If you ever want some feedback, hey, let us know and we'd be glad to help you out. But I'm not going to force that on anybody. But if they say, hey, here's this cool thing that I made, what are your thoughts? I'm thinking about green versus blue. I'm thinking about option A versus option B. What are y'all's opinions? Okay, now let's offer the feedback. Let's try to be helpful, because we're all trying to get better in some way, right? Especially if you're in some kind of online community like that. And it's really frustrating how often I will see someone post, and I'm an admin of some of these groups, and I'll see someone post, hey, I need feedback, and then they'll post their images or whatever it is, and out of curiosity, I will click on their name, and because of the Facebook admin dashboard and all that, I can see every comment, every post that they've ever made inside the group. And it's kind of annoying, kind of frustrating how often I'll see someone say, hey, I need some feedback, but if I go into their comments and what they've posted on other people's stuff and all that, I won't see anything. It's like, it really bothers me when people have catcher's mitts on both hands. The idea I've talked about before is like, don't just be a ladder climber, be a ladder builder. Life is just so much better for everybody. And so if you want feedback for your stuff, please offer up feedback to other people for what they're working on. Just do it when they ask. And do it in a way that is kind and helpful, because just posting, hey, this sucks, is not super useful for anybody. Kindness is key. And then the last thing is to support that person as you're able. I realize times are hard, inflation is crazy. My wife asked me to buy her something expensive the other day, and I bought her a dozen eggs. She didn't find that as humorous as I did. But support people as you can. We live in such a cool time where people can put their work out into the world and make money from it and build up audiences and followings. And there's platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and GameFound where they can say, hey, here's this cool thing I really want to make. I want to give to you and the world. And then you can toss them a few dollars and they can make that thing. But not everybody can support, with a bunch of money and things like that. And things are getting more and more expensive. And so just support as you're able, even if it's just, posting online saying, hey, I've got a friend or a person I follow and they're doing this really cool project. Here's the link. Go check it out. That means the world to that creative person. Even if you just throw $1, they've got a Kickstarter campaign that they're running and you just pop in there and you toss $1 in, a donation as support, or $10, and you don't even ask to receive anything. You're just like, hey, I just want to support you and what you're doing. You post a comment and say, hey, really love to see your work. Can't wait to, see this come to life. Whatever it is, like just to say, hey, I see you. I like what you're doing. I support it. And even if it's not for you, like I can't tell you how many times I've gone on, Kickstarter, GameFound, whatever, and donated some money to somebody for a game or a book or art project that is not for me. I am not the audience. I am not the target customer at all, or anything at all. But I like this person. I've seen them bring value into the world, value into my life, and I just wanted to say, hey, it's cool what you're doing. Here's a few bucks, and I'll post your link online. And I've gotten some really amazing thank you messages for that. And I've sent out thank you messages for the same thing. I've had so many people support me over the years for a project I was doing, not because they wanted the thing that I was going to make or the thing I was selling, but just because they wanted to support me. And that means the world. I cannot tell you how thankful I am for those folks. Obviously, I love it when people buy the thing that I'm making and they want to play it, they want to read it, whatever it is. But I also love it when people are just like, hey, love what you're doing. Here's a few bucks to bring it to life. It means the world. But again, it doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be big, grandiose. It doesn't have to be much at all. Just a comment, just an encouraging word, just a message to say, hey, I see you, I love what you're doing. It truly means a lot. So that's a few ways that you can support your creative friends, creative people that you follow online. If you have any other ideas about ways to support folks, I'd love to see what you have to say down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.